Okay, let's continue where that last video left off with our Laestrygonians. So, all of their ships are being destroyed except the one that Odysseus is on. Pretty convenient that Odysseus is the one is on the ship that does not get destroyed, but all of his other ships are destroyed. Up to this point, he had a lot of men with him, and now all of those men have been killed, and there's only the men that he has left on this one ship with him. Odysseus and his reduced crew escape and reach Aea, the island ruled by the sorceress goddess Circe. So we are introduced to Circe here. She's the sorceress goddess of sorcery. She transforms half of the men into swine being pigs. So what Odysseus does is he sends 23 of his men ahead of him, and he says, go scope out what's going on in this island. Circe finds them. Circe turns them into pigs. So Odysseus is not with them when she turns them into pigs. Protected by a magic herb, so Hermes, the messenger god from Olympus, he appears to Odysseus and he says, you need to take this magic herb. If you take this herb, Circe cannot affect you. So, protected by this magic herb, Odysseus demands that Circe changes man back into human form. So, he goes up to her, he says, your powers don't work against me. You have to turn my men back into men. Turn them away from being pigs. And so Circe, seeing that her powers don't work on Odysseus, is convinced. She turns the men from swine back into men. Before Odysseus departs from the island a year later, I want you to focus on that point. Odysseus and his men stay on Circe's island for a year. It is comfortable, they're well provided for, they're just having a nice time chilling out on Circe's island. Some people say that Circe and Odysseus had an affair. Some people say that Circe bore a child, so she actually got pregnant from Odysseus and had this kid. Some people will say that kid belongs to Calypso, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but some people say it's Circe. And before Odysseus departs from the island a year later, Circe informs him that in order to reach home, he must journey to the land of the dead, Hades, and consult the blind prophet Tiresias. So, what she says to him is that you have to go to where you can talk to all of these spirits, this dead spirit of Tiresias, because he's going to give you some helpful information, basically like a prophecy for how you are going to continue your journey. So, now Odysseus knows where he has to go next. He has faced these obstacles so far. He's going to finally leave Circe's island after a year and head to the land of the dead. And that is where this story is going to pick up, is with the land of the dead. Okay? So we're going to start reading. Make sure you have pen, pencil, something in your hand, highlighter to highlight along with me. If you want to pull it up on your smartphone on another tab on your computer, that is also fine. But we will go through this story now. We bore down on the ship at the sea's edge and launched her on the salt immortal sea, stepping our mast and spar in the black ship, embarked the ram and you, and went aboard in tears, with bitter and sore dread upon us. So I want you to consider the fact that they have been on Circe's island for a year. So when they are leaving, there's bitter and sore dread. They haven't been really facing anything for a year now. They've just been relaxing. So now they have to get back to it. But now a breeze came up for us astern, a canvas, bellying land breeze, hail shipmate, sent by the singing nymph with sun-bright hair. So we made fast the braces, took our thwarts, and let the wind and steersman work the ship with full sail, spread all day above our coursing, till the sun dipped and all the ways grew dark upon the fathomless, unresting sea. So we have some intense imagery here at the end. We know that the sea, it's growing dark, this fathomless, unresting sea. There's waves, but Circe sends the wind to help them make it to the land of the dead really quickly. So Circe is helping them out here so they don't have to worry about actually traveling to the land of the dead, because she's going to help them with that wind. By night, our ship ran onward toward the oceans born, the realm and region of the men of winter. So they're heading north. Hidden in mist and cloud. Never the flaming eye of Helios's lights on those men at morning, when he climbs the sky of stars, nor in descending earthward out of the heaven. Ruinous night being rove a bunch over those wretches. We made the land, put ram and ewe ashore, remember those other sheep animals, and took our way along the ocean stream to find the place foretold to us by Circe. So they make landfall, and now they're going to head to the place wherever they are going to talk to these dead spirits. There, Perimedes and Eurylochus, who are just two of Odysseus' men, held the legs of the sacred beasts. With my drawn blade, I spaded up the votive pit. So what he's doing is he's digging a hole and poured libations around it to the unnumbered dead, sweet milk and honey, then sweet wine, and last clear water. So what he's doing right now is he's kind of making a sacrifice. He's pouring wine, pouring water, pouring milk and honey, because he's trying to summon these spirits. So it's basically like a conjuring here. And I scattered barley down. Then I addressed the blurred and breathless dead, vowing to slaughter my best heifer for them before she calved at home in Ithaca, and burn the choice bits on the altar fire. As for Tiresias, I swore to sacrifice a black lamb, handsomest of all of our flock. Thus, to assuage the nations of the dead, I pledged these rites, then slashed the lamb and ewe, letting their black blood stream into the well pit. So he kills these animals and uses their blood as a sacrifice for Tiresias and the other dead to come speak to them. Now the souls gathered, stirring out of Erebus, brides and young men, and men grown old in pain, and tender girls whose hearts were new to grief. Many were there too, torn by brazen lance head, battle slain, bearing still their bloody gear. From every side they came and sought the pit with rustling cries, and I grew sick with fear. But presently I gave command to my officers to flay those sheep the bronze cut down, and make burnt offerings of flesh to the gods below, to sovereign death, to pale Persephone. So what they're doing right now is they're conjuring spirits from the underworld. You're going to see here in that little passage that we just read, it explains how all of them are kind of in different states. Some of them are old because they died of old age. Some of them are in grief because they're young and they died never loving anyone. Remember, we talked about those different parts of the underworld whenever we talked about Greek mythology. So all of these spirits are appearing to take the sacrifice or to come up to this sacrifice that's being made. And then they make extra sacrifices to sovereign death. You know who that is. That's good old Hades. And then pale Persephone, Hades' wife, who he kidnapped. Meanwhile, I crouched with my drawn sword to keep the surging phantoms from the bloody pit till I should know the presence of Tiresias. So Odysseus is saying, hold on, you cannot eat and drink until I see Tiresias, till I know that he is here. Remember, that is the man that Circe told him to find. One shade came first. Remember, when we talk about shade, it's just kind of the spirit of the dead. So make sure you note that. Shade, the spirit of the dead. Elpenor of our company, who lay unburied still on the wide earth as we had left him, dead in Circe's hall, untouched, unmourned, when others' cares compelled us. Now when I saw him there, I wept for pity and called out to him, How is this, Elpenor? How could you journey to the western gloom swifter of foot than I in the black lugger? So, Elpenor, who was one of Odysseus' men who died in Circe's hall, we didn't talk about it because we didn't linger on Circe, but now we know, that Elpenor died whenever he was there, and he has already made it to this part of the underworld, and he's talking to Odysseus now. Son of great Laertes, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, bad luck shadowed me, and no kindly power. Ignoble death I drank with so much wine. I want you to underline the ignoble death I drank with so much wine. I slept on Circe's roof, and could not see the long, steep, backward ladder coming down, and fell that height. My neck bone buckled under, snapped, and my spirit found this well of dark. So, what Elpenor did was he got too drunk at Circe's palace over that year. He climbed up to the roof, fell asleep, as one does, and when he woke up, he fell off the roof and broke his neck, and that is how he died. Now, he's saying this is an ignoble death because when you're a soldier, when you're someone who's fought in the Trojan War and you're journeying back home and you face the Cyclops and you're defeated the Lotus Eaters and that you are doing all of this, defeated the Lacedaemonians, you've done all these amazing things, and you die because you got too drunk and went on a roof. So he's saying it's this ignoble death. He wanted something more noble. Now hear the grace I pray for in the name of those back in the world, not here, your wife and father, he who gave you his bread in childhood, and your own child, your only son, Telemachus, long ago left at home. When you make sail and put these lodgings of dim death behind you, you will moor ship, I know, upon Aeaea island. There, O Lord, remember me. I pray, do not abandon me unwept, unburied, to tempt the gods' wrath, while you sail for home, but fire my corpse, and all the gear I had, and build a cairn for me above the breakers, an unknown sailor's mark for men to come. Heap up the mound there, and implant upon it, in the oar, I pulled in life with my companions. So what he's saying to Odysseus, he says, after you leave here, I can see that you're going to go back to Circe's island. Once you get there, find my body, find everything that belongs to me, and burn it. And then build me this kind of memorial that people can see from the sea. So whenever they sail past Circe's island, they can see this monument for me because I died on this island. That'll hopefully give him more of this noble ending that he wanted. He ceased, and I replied, unhappy spirit, I promise you the burial and the burial. So what Odysseus says, he said, I promise you, when I go back to Circe's island, I will make this for you. I will make this monument for you. I'm seeing him be a pretty decent guy there, feeling this pity for Elpenor. So we conversed, grimly at a distance, with my long sword between, guarding the blood, while the faint image of the lad spoke on. Now came the soul of Anticlea, dead, my mother, daughter of Atticus, dead now, though living still when I took ship for holy Troy. Seeing this ghost, I grieved, but held her off, through the pang of tears, till I should know the presence of Tiresias. So his mother's spirit, Odysseus' mother's spirit, comes up to him. He mentions that before he left for the battle in Troy, his mother was still alive. So she died since he's been gone. So he didn't know she was dead. So he shook. That she walks up and she reveals to him that she's dead. And he sees this grief. He feels this grief. It's one of the only instances in this story where we are going to see Odysseus grieve something. And it's the fact that he is grieving his mother, who has died. And so we see this kind of human emotion in him. So far, he's kind of been pushing that aside, being this tough leader. And now he's showing this human emotion. So he says that he has to push that emotion aside, though. We see him with that mental strength because he's still waiting and looking for Tiresias. Soon, from the dark, that prince of Thebes came forward bearing a golden staff, and he addressed me. So Tiresias walks up to him, and now Tiresias has something to say. If you look at this last part of the story, everything here is what Tiresias has to say to Odysseus. It is extremely important about the rest of the story, so you need to make sure you're paying attention. Son of Laertes and gods of old Odysseus, master of landways and seaways, why leave the blazing sun, O man of woe, to see the cold dead in the joyless region? Stand clear, put up your sword, let me but taste of blood, I shall speak true. So what he's saying is, like, I'll tell you whatever you need to know once I take part in this offering that you have made, this sacrifice. So he's saying, move aside so I can drink this blood. At this, I stepped aside, and in the scabbard let my long sword ring home to the pommel, silver as he bent down to the somber blood. So Odysseus puts his weapon away. Now he is, or now Tiresias is there. He's not worried about holding all the other spirits back. Then spoke the prince of those with gift of speech. So Tiresias is talking to him now, and he says, Great captain, a fair wind and the honey lights of home are all you seek. But anguish lies ahead. Anguish meaning troubles, hard times that Odysseus is going to have to face. The god who thunders on the land prepares it, not to be shaken from your track, implacable in rancor from the sun whose eye you blinded. So the god who thunders on the land, that's going to be Zeus and Poseidon here, are now angry at Odysseus. Zeus was already angry at Odysseus. Now we have Poseidon who's angry at Odysseus because he blinded his son, who is Polyphemus. One narrow strait may take you through his blows, denial of yourself, restraint of shipmates. When you make landfall on Thrinacia first and quit the violent sea, dark on the land, you'll find the grazing herds of Helios, by whom all things are seen, all speech is known. So, first thing that Tiresias says to him right now is he says that there's one way that you can go in order to avoid the wrath of Poseidon. You will have to go through this narrow strait, and there's going to be something really hard for you to deal with in that little narrow strait of sea. So we're going to talk about that in our next story, Siren, Scylla, and Charybdis. And he's also mentioning now that he's going to land on an island called Thrinacia, where Helios and his grazing herds, which can be his cattle, all are. We're going to see that in cattle of the sun god as well, Helios being one of our sun gods. Avoid those kinds, so avoid those cattle. Hold fast to your intent, and hard seafaring brings you all to Ithaca. But if you raid them, so if you raid the cattle, I see destruction for ship and crew. Though you survive alone, bereft of all your companions, lost for years under strange sail, shall you come home to find your own house filled with trouble. Insolent men eating your livestock as they court your lady. Aye, you shall make those men atone in blood, but after you have dealt out death in open combat or by stealth to all the suitors, go overland on foot and take an oar until one day you come where men have lived with meat unsalted, never known the sea, nor seen sea-going ships, with crimson bows, and oars that fledge light hulls for dipping flight. The spot will soon be plain to you, and I can tell you how. Some passerby will say, What winnowing fan is that upon your shoulder? Halt and implant your smooth oar in the turf, and make fair sacrifice to Lord Poseidon. A ram, a bull, a great buck boar. Turn back and carry out pure hecatombs at home to all wide heaven's lords, the undying gods, to each in order. Then a sea-born death, soft as his hand of mist, will come upon you when you are wearied out with rich old age, your country folk in blessed peace around you, and all this shall be just as I foretell. So that was a really long part without me stopping there. But what Tiresias is saying here, he's saying after you make it to Thrinacia with this cattle of the sun god, you will make it back home to Ithaca. And if your men decide they do want to eat the cattle and they do touch the cattle, then all of those men are going to die. And you are going to be the only one that returns home to Ithaca after still even more time away from home. We're going to see that when he ends up on Calypso's island. When you make it to Ithaca, there are going to be men there. Those suitors that I was talking about earlier, about those ones who are trying to get with Penelope, Odysseus' wife. And you will have to defeat those suitors somehow. Once you have done that, you need to go make offering to Poseidon, beg for forgiveness, say you're sorry, make this offering to him. And then you have to do that for all of the gods. Make your apologies to all of the gods. And once you do that, you will live a beautiful long life, and then you will have a death at sea, a seaborne death, in your happy old age when you are ready to die. So Tiresias is basically laying out Odysseus' entire future. Now, Odysseus has this roadmap for what's going to happen. We're going to see how he approaches that, what he tells his men, how this actually plays out, and that is going to be with the rest of our story. So, one thing you probably noticed when I clicked on this slide a little earlier, you do have a quiz today. Now, remember, these quizzes aren't something that I can necessarily stop you from looking at your stories or taking a million years on. I will be looking at your timestamp, but what I want you to do rather on this quiz is just make sure that you are using it as a review for what we have read so far up to this point with the Cyclops in Land of the Dead. There are going to be short answer questions on there. The short answer questions are going to be graded for accuracy and depth of answers, and what you see in the parentheses in the question, what I'm looking for specifically with your answers. Please make sure you're answering in complete sentences, pulling evidence, cited evidence from the text when you're answering those questions. If you guys have any questions, like always, message me on Remind, email me, reach out to me on Instagram so that I can answer those questions in a timely fashion and then get back to you. Okay. That's it for today. Thanks, guys.